Hello and welcome to the monthly webinar hosted by the Northwood University Alumni Department. My name is Julia Damchek and I will be your host and moderator today. The title of our webinar this month is Why Electrify? EV and what does this mean for me? So we have a few guest speakers who are alumni of Northwood University. Very excited to have them join us today. Both of them have much experience in the EV industry. So today we have Aleck Brownstein. He is class of 2001, and he has been with Volvo for 10 years and is currently the Director of Sales and Marketing in the Western region for Volvo. Volvo has committed to being fully electrified by 2030, I believe. So Aleck has some great insight into the future of EV. Dedrick Roper, class of '04. Dedrick has worn many hats in the EV industry. In '08, he started his own company, Current Moves, electric bikes and scooters. And since then, he has worked with City Car Share and most recently was the Director of Public-Private Partnerships for ChargePoint. Also have a few fun facts about both of them. Dedrick was in the NFL for 4 years. He played football for Northwood and then went on to the NFL, playing for both the Pittsburgh Steelers and the St. Louis Rams. And Aleck happens to own multiple gas guzzling cars, which we think is kind of ironic for today's topic. And then fun fact about Northwood, we are actually installing a few chargers on campus this summer. So this is a very hot topic for us right now. And again, we're excited to have this discussion today. Reminders, we will open it up for Q&A at the end of their presentation. So on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a Q&A chat box. So please type in your questions there at any time during the presentation, and we'll get to those later. We're also recording this, and so we will send out the recording after we're all done. We'll email that out to you and post it on our YouTube channel. We should be on here for about 30 to 40 minutes total. So after that, we'll let you get back to work and get back to your day. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Aleck. We'll get us started. And
yeah, well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. It's really fun to be able to talk to everyone. You know, I think we all have a fondness for Northwood, and it's great to see everyone lean into electrification. I think as we were talking about, you know, the story behind electrification and how we've all gotten here, it's important to realize that there is an adoption curve to it, and understanding that it takes some very ambitious people to really push that. So, you know, at Volvo, it really started a number of years ago. I know many of us know that Ford owned Volvo up until 2010. And at that point, there were some courageous decisions made. And the first was to design our all-new architecture, and that architecture included electrification and a four-cylinder only drivetrain, which our halo car, the best-selling car in our platform, in our lineup, is the XC90. So having the guts to really go after the market with four-cylinder only meant we had to go after alternative power sources at the same time. And that really spurred the investment in the plug-in hybrids. So in 2016, we launched our first car that was electrified. That was the XC90. It had about 18 or 19 miles of range on pure electric, and that was our start there. It's continued to grow. This year, we just launched our third iteration of the battery technology in that car, and it's now at over 30 miles pure electric range, which means that you can have your cake and eat it too with that. But having the courage to do that, we've also said that by 2025, half of our cars sold would be pure electrics, and getting to the goal at 2030 to have a fully electrified lineup, and that's full electrics. So in order to get there, there have been a number of steps that we've had to take along the way, and as consumers, we're not quite ready for it yet. So it's baby steps along the way, and also answering a lot of questions too. So in order for us to get to the point where we are, where our sales last month, 44% of the cars across the country had a plug, and 71% in the state of California. So we are just we keep moving forward, and as the economics of gasoline keep changing, it's working out more and more in our favor. We're actually, for model year 23, every car is going to be a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or a full battery electric. And I'm sitting in one today. I got my first one about 6 months ago, and one of my friends that's into classic cars with me, we were driving around in it the other day, and he looks at me and he goes, "If I drove a car that was this quick, I would be street racing every Hellcat and Mustang I saw on the street." So I think we look at Teslas and we look at some of the cars and we say that the styling is not it's just a different kind of style because of the aerodynamics that are needed, or the fact that everyone thinks of a Tesla when they think of an electric car, but there's so many others and so many more coming out that the styling will evolve, and it's really going to become a fun place in the industry. And I am actually thinking at some point I will convert one of my classics over, or build another one to be an electric, because I think it would be so fun. And I'm going to flip it over to Dedrick now.
Thanks for that, Alec. I'm really blown away by those sales figures. I mean, 71% in the state of California. If that's not adoption, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Haven't been back to Northwood in a while, but when I reflect on my time in Northwood, it's really been instrumental in my EV journey. Really the core, values of Northwood, of entrepreneurship, really creating value is what has, allowed me personally to jump into this industry back in 2008 and, find ways to continue to create value over the years. So just, taking the time to reflect on the Northwood education, really, I joined I started attending Northwood my junior year, previously at Michigan State, walked on there playing football, majoring in psychology, and had no idea what I was going to do with my future. Luckily, I had a friend Ruben Gay, who transferred to Northwood, and he talked me into coming, and it was the best thing I ever, one of the best things I ever did. Really digging into business and things that made sense for the rest of my life was really eye-opening. So, just wanted to, the value of the education we received at Northwood can really take you many, many, many places. But to talk specifically about EV charging and, to talk about sort of opportunities in entrepreneurship, I think first it's important to sort of understand how charging actually happens. We've been driving gas automobiles for many, many years. And, it's a traditional fuel model. You go to a gas station, you fuel up, and you get going. Well, an electric vehicle is very different. It's more akin to charging your cell phone. Anywhere you're going to be for a long time is a great time to charge your car. It's more of a top-up model. So if you're at work, you're there, 8 hours plus, it's a great place to plug in and let your car charge. At home, actually, many studies cite that the majority of charging occurs at home, between 80 and 90%. But the infrastructure in the public is incredibly important to instill confidence in drivers. We don't buy cars for the everyday use. If we did, we wouldn't need long range cars. As consumers, we buy cars for the long road trip. We buy it for the trip to grandma's house, etc. So having that network out there be highly visible for drivers is paramount to promoting adoption. So just wanted to share that kind of the model. While there is a place for fast charging at gas stations, on highways, supermarkets are really popular, especially for people who live in multifamily properties and may not have may not have access to charging at home. That infrastructure becomes incredibly critical. But just want to sort of level set that it really is a shift in your habit. You're not on a weekly basis, you're not driving to a gas station and filling up. You're topping up at home and topping up at work. And then through smart charging, so intelligence in the charging station, you're able to customize your charging offering and customize it in different ways to develop different value propositions depending on your business. And that's really what I want to talk about today is kind of how you create all those different, how smart charging enables different value propositions for different entrepreneurs and businesses. So Alec, I don't know if you had more, if you wanted me to keep going.
No, that's awesome. I think so. Talking about the smart charging and where it's going to go into the future, there's so many times I hear people say, "Well, how are we going to support all these electric cars with the fragile grid that we have today?" And I think that that's one of the things that's most exciting to me about the industry and where it's going is we've seen cars like the F-150 Lightning come out with the ability for the bidirectional charging. So once the grid is supported by a fleet of electric cars that can then help during those peak periods, I don't know if you have them in Michigan, and I know Dedrick, you're up in Northern California. The brownouts are awful because they come at the worst time of year when it's hot and when we're worried about it. So if we had the ability to run our house, I know I did the calculation. If my XC40 were able to be bidirectional with my house, I could run my house with the air conditioning and everything on for a day and a half. And I think that's exciting about where the technology is going in the future as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Vehicle grid integration, so providing ancillary services as well. Sort of jumping into some of these value propositions. That's valuable stuff to the utilities. If you've got a bunch of cars coming home at the same time, everybody's plugging in at the same time. They've got, you're cooking dinner, you're running the AC, etc. That's a lot of strain on the grid. But as Alec was saying, once you have a critical mass, once the EV fleet in a utility service territory is significant enough, now the utility will potentially have avenues to leverage those vehicles to provide support for the grid. So demand response, sort of keeping the peak energy low in the hot months, in the winter months. I mean, even in Texas, right? It never would have imagined the situation they had there with freezing temperatures and really people losing their lives over that. And as Alec was saying, like the innovations from the OEMs to support bidirectional charging is really going to open up a lot of value that is not tapped today. So yeah, just really, that was a great point, Alex.
The other one to talk about too is I know you have more experience with this, and I want you to take the ball and run with it. But talking about when we've talked to our dealers, so our dealers have invested heavily in charging infrastructure, it's not only the charger itself, it's also the size of the pipe, the wiring, and the amount of voltage and amperage that comes through. But what kind of opportunities are there for dealers? Because I've only skimmed the surface on it, but I think that there are some opportunities for businesses as a revenue source as well.
Yeah, the dealerships, there's a lot of untapped potential there. I think, sort of traditionally there's been some resistance. If you've gone to buy an electric vehicle, historically it hasn't been the best buying experience. But I think now that the OEMs are stepping up and saying, this is our future, we're going to convert completely to electric, you're starting to see a lot of new things, a lot of new value being developed at the dealership. So Alec mentioned, the charger. So that's a revenue stream. You could sell a charger. You can develop in-house installation services or partner with an installer. Every car that leaves the dealership should have a charger associated with it. And then that gets you into other things like energy storage within your house, solar panels. I actually saw, and I don't remember which brand it was, but just yesterday, there's a dealership in Southern California who's partnered with a solar installer, and they're providing full turnkey solar battery charger installs coupled with the EV charger. So these are things that are just beginning to happen. These are the models and creativity that's just starting now. You're getting over sort of the resistance of EV, and now what's the opportunity here for me? And I think you're seeing you're gonna continue to see a lot of creative opportunities coming forward.
I'm really excited too about the ability for the houses to get smarter, and I think electric cars will help push people to manage electricity in a lot better manner as well. We're seeing, for example, for my house was built in 1969, so it was old. For me to get my charger, I have to do a panel upgrade, and when doing that panel upgrade, it then sets a foundation for a lot of future enhancements as well. All the things you talked about, the solar, the battery, all of that, which is great.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it would be good to sort of talk about like some real concrete opportunities in the space and sort of how various entrepreneurs can approach this. So you sort of have two camps in the EV industry, EV charging industry. You have sort of the organizations that they own chargers to make money on dispensing kilowatt hours. And there's other ways you can monetize that. So partnering with fleets, developing offtake agreements where a fleet operator has a specialized rate to your charger. In places like California, Oregon, and now Canada, there are clean fuels programs. So just keep it at a high level. In a clean fuels program, a charging station owner that is dispensing electricity into vehicles creates credits, whereas sort of your oil and gas companies, other polluting companies have deficits, and they need to go out and buy credits to make themselves whole in the state. And in California, we've seen this be a great accelerator to deployment. A lot of traditional finance companies getting in the game, leveraging these credits that can be very, very lucrative to greatly subsidize the deployment of chargers or subsidize the operation of chargers. So another sort of, it's a newer sort of market. It's a newer opportunity, but as other states adopt this, you're going to see the benefits of that going forward. So that's kind of the one cap, is like, I'm selling electrons. These tend to be your well-funded companies who have large highway networks and things like that. But also there's a big push in the fueling and convenience space right now to get involved. So obviously gas stations we mentioned, but places like Wawa, 7-Eleven, etc. Now waking up to this opportunity, and Starbucks. I won't steal your thunder, Alec, but maybe you want to talk about
okay.
that. But,
Yeah.
You want to speak about that?
Yeah. So, we were really proud. The Starbucks idea came out of our regional office out on the West Coast. So it's been really fun. We went to them, and it all came from an ideation session where we said, what's the issue with vehicle charging when you're on the road? And it's a lot of the chargers are in dimly lit back of the parking lot, like areas where there's trash. Like sometimes the cords are cut. Like, it's really sad, the condition of the area when you go to charge your car. So we said, well, where do we want to go? And we had narrowed it down to 4 or 5 different establishments, and we ended up partnering with ChargePoint and Starbucks, and then ourselves. And it's a deal where we said, okay, California is very saturated with charging infrastructure, but what part of the country is there not a lot where we're actually selling a lot of electric cars? And it was in Denver and Seattle. So we looked at the road trip between the two cities and said, let's go here, and this will be our first endeavor. news for us to invest, and we're now caring about grants all over the place where we can work, where there's some federal money out there for us to invest with Starbucks and ChargePoint and work together to improve the infrastructure at the same time. So it's really an exciting space.
Yeah. And why would a organization like Starbucks want to install charging stations at their property? It's another great benefit of kind of the longer dwell time of more typical charging behavior. You're attracting those drivers to your business, and they are naturally going to be there longer because they're charging. And there have been multiple retailers that I've worked with in the past that have tracked those drivers, and they tend to spend more time in the stores. They tend to fill up the carts more. So it's a big benefit to a lot of retailers to offer free or subsidized charging to get those drivers to the site, but they're not benefiting specifically from the sale of electricity. They're deriving value from the customer being in the store longer and spending more money. So that's another that translates to retail. It translates to workplace as an amenity for your employees. Think about right now the way gas prices are. If my employer is now offering charging at work and it's subsidized or even free, now you're just giving me a raise. Same thing with multifamily properties. As more and more multifamily properties install charging stations in partnership with utilities. We haven't mentioned utilities, but utilities are waking up in a big way. Significant investments in programs. Multifamily properties, it's another way to attract tenants and retain tenants, especially with all the OEMs heading towards electric. So
it's really cool, and seeing some of the cities hop on board with the utilities in some of the areas where you really don't have a lot of single family houses. Some of the street side installations that I've seen are really great to provide for people that live in apartments or condos or multifamily units. Like, it's just, some people don't have a garage, and we want them to drive electrics too.
I'm hopping on here because we've got 7 questions listed already, and I think they're going to drive some more conversation between you two. So if you don't mind, I'm going to hop in and throw some of these questions at you. So I think you already kind of answered this one with your Starbucks story, but Galligan asked, is the Tesla model of placing charging stations at Meijer stores one that other manufacturers will follow? And do you think that's a good way to help with transition to all EV? Pretty sure that's, go ahead. Do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I could jump in. I'd say, am I on? Oh yeah, grocery stores. Yeah, grocery stores are one of the best locations for a DC fast charger. There's some public reports you can review that show utilization at different locations, and for fast charging, grocery stores are one of the actually the best location. But as far as other manufacturers, yes, I mean there are, Electrify America is a big network that's been deploying the last few years. EVgo is a big one. ChargePoint, my former employer. And then there's other smaller organizations popping up, but with the Alec mentioned it, with the investment of federal funds, so there's $7.5 billion approved for EV charging over the next 5 years, and many state and utility investments. You're going to continue to see more deployments like you're seeing at Myers.
Right. So I think this started during your brownout conversation. How are you going to charge your car if your house has no power?
I think, okay, so that's the same question. You can't fill your car up with gas either when the gas station doesn't have any power. So I think what we've seen is that it's actually better. So when there was that ice storm on the East Coast, I think it was in the DC area, and people were stuck on the freeway their cars were there for well over 12 hours. A lot of people ran out of gas. I think the important thing to understand with electric cars is it's a top-up model. So every place you go, you should have the ability to top it up so that you're not running it down. On the flip side of that, they did some tests on some EVs, not Volvos, but other EVs, and found that they would sustain heating for more than 5 days if you had to stay in your car in an ice storm, for example. So I'm less concerned about that, and I love the question too.
Yeah. And I'll just piggyback on that to say that resiliency is important, right? Like we're going to be building evacuation routes and things like that. There needs to be a resiliency at the site. So things like on-site battery storage, microgrids, et cetera. I think there needs to be a FEMA type response prepared for your critical evacuation routes. There are some states, and obviously the federal government is looking at that. So I mean, it's a great point. I don't think, we don't have the exact perfect solution right now, but obviously as more adoption comes and as this build out continues to happen, I believe there will be more investment in sort of resilient backup power systems and things like that along your critical routes.
Thank you. All right, Northwood student Blake Holland, who coincidentally is one of the students that was pushing for our EV chargers on campus. So hi, Blake. Thanks for joining us today. He's asking, do you think our electric grid and infrastructure will be able to support your 2030 goals?
I have full confidence that there will be enough technology advancements over the next 8 years to get us there. I also understand that the fact that the average age of a car today is around 14 or 15 years old. So even in the state of California, where they've said that by 2035, all cars need to be fully electric that are sold, that means that half of the cars are 50, the average age is 15. So in order to convert the whole fleet is going to take decades, and it's not going to happen overnight. So between technology and the ramp in, we will be fine. And the ability to utilize more batteries in storage places is really the key.
And I would just add to that, EVs unlock greater ability to use renewables. It's really difficult it's not difficult. It can be challenging to release renewable energy to the grid, but EVs with this flexible power source, you can now get more on that. I mean, Alec mentioned 70% of the sales in California were electric, and we just, for the first time, powered the state entirely on solar. It was only 15 minutes, but we're making progress, and more EVs on the road will enable more, more EVs on the road and managed charging, right? So you want to charge at the time when the generation is highest. Right now, we're wasting a lot of energy at those times. So I'm very confident, as Alec is, that the grid will be able to support.
Thank you. All right, this is just we're directed towards Alec. Does Volvo being fully electrified by 2030 also mean the same for your HD commercial trucks? And
Actually,
go ahead. No, I'll throw this on. It's kind of related. And do you also plan to share your technology with your Polestar partner?
Okay, so it's actually the opposite. So Polestar is its own company. It's owned partially by Volvo Cars, and Volvo Cars and Volvo Trucks are actually two separate companies as well. So when Ford bought Volvo Cars, there was a divorce right there. We share some technology engineering still in Sweden, but it's at a contract basis. So it's totally separated. But Polestar is really one of our technology incubators, and we utilize the technology that they create for and invest in for the electric cars, and then we bring it over to the Volvo lineup as well. So yes, there is a partnership, and Polestar and Volvo are two separate companies as well, even though today the cars look very similar, and in the future they will look very different. It's really going to be fun to watch that brand explode and continue to grow.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's go here. Do you think the price of gas is the primary motivation for consumers to make the transition to EV? If so, how to keep that momentum when the prices go down again? Either one of you.
I think total cost.
Yeah.
I think total cost of ownership is a component. I don't think it's common knowledge that operating an EV is more cost effective over time than a gas vehicle. So I don't think that's a big driver. I think for one, the acceleration. When you get in an EV and you drive it, you have a smile on your face. Like that's what's driving folks right now. There are a lot of other reasons to do it, like environmental, cost, etc. But right now, if you go get in an EV, it's a superior ride.
I would totally agree. I think that when you look at the drivability of it, it has a greater weight distribution between all four wheels, and it handles really well. The acceleration is incredible, and it just is such a smooth ride. It's so quiet. I think the environmental portion of it too, that people are leaning towards whatever they can do in their life to make an impact and show their kids that they're making an impact. I think that's something that's really important to them as well.
All right, I got a technical question here. Has Volvo had any complexities overcoming thermal management using two drive motors?
Well, that one's more technical than
Yeah.
what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure.
Brian, we might need to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, Brian, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and then I'll route you to the right people to answer that one. I would say we've been running an electrical fleet since 2016 on the plug-in hybrids, and we're in our second full model year of going into our third on BEVs. So I think we got it figured out. We're actually looking at going to one motor to bring the cost of the cars down at some point in time as well.
Thank you. All right, one last
That's a great question.
One more question here, and you may have already touched on this, but how is Volvo working directly with the electric companies to ensure the infrastructure is in place?
So I think our partnerships are more with the charging partners than the electric companies and the utilities. I think we're working with ChargePoint and Electrify America specifically. We offer partnerships with both of them for our consumers, and we're really working to make sure they have the ability to charge in-home and out of home equally for whatever their lifestyles are. And I think that's where we're leaning into. The utility companies really they're kind of figuring it out on their own, I feel like. And they're seeing where the demand grows, and then they're continuing to invest. They are a business too. While they are a utility, they are a business also. So they're gonna grow as the market demands it.
Thank you.
Dedrick, do you have anything you want to add to that? I think that's
Yeah, I mean, from
right up your alley too.
Yeah, former infrastructure perspective, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of things going on. I mentioned the federal investment, the Volkswagen settlement, if folks remember that from, I want to say 2017. So there has been a national effort to build out infrastructure through that program. And then, aside from utilities being a business, they're also regulated, or at least the investor-owned utilities are regulated. So there's a lot of, different plans, investment plans and things like that are underway in many states. And even you're beginning to see partnerships being formed between utilities across state lines. So, the work is being done, and with, the certainty of billions of dollars in investment over the next, 5 to 10 years, the build out is just going to continue to accelerate.
Thank you. Well, that was the last of our questions. So last chance to type in a question if you've got one. Otherwise, I'm going to let you guys make any final statements you might want to share with our audience today. I like Alec had mentioned. I'm sure both him and Dedrick would be willing to connect with you on LinkedIn and answer any questions you might have beyond this. And since they're both advocates for this industry. Oh, we've got one more. One more. It says, do you think the government is too heavy-handed in pushing EV versus customer desire and demand? I'll give it to both of you.
I think sometimes people need a little push. And what we've seen is that there are different things that motivate different people. And when we give the consumer the opportunity to make a decision, there are lots of decisions they can make right now. EVs may not be perfect for everyone, but they are really good for a lot of people. And I believe that cars are one of those things that you need to feel what the purpose is of it for what you're driving every day. Not everyone needs a 7-passenger car every day to drive back and forth to work, but sometimes you do need a 7-passenger car. So depending on what your needs are, that's going to dictate your desires and what you're going to shop for. And then, using the government money to spur the technology to help the future, I think it's great. I love seeing it. And I think, my entrepreneurial and my Northwood education says that, the subsidies aren't always the right approach, but sometimes they are. And I think we'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say I think the role of government in this is to be a great convener and to provide direction. And I think that they've been doing that very well. It's not, it's not a result of the government being heavy-handed. There's so much opportunity in this space right now. Like when looking at job boards just a few years ago, it was, the jobs in this space were few and far between. Now, if you go do a search on LinkedIn, there's thousands of them. And that's being driven by the consumer, I believe. Tesla has, I don't want to spend too much time on Tesla, but they are, crushing sales numbers, and folks are beginning to, trying to catch up. And that's all consumer choice. Just back to the reasons we said, it's a superior ride. There's technology in there that's never, been there before. It's really pushing the envelope and providing a lot of value to people.
All right. We've got some final questions here. So, Tony, how do you think a used car dealer can profit from EV vehicles in the next 3 to 5 years?
I could jump in. Secondhand EV market. EVs are great used vehicles in California. So I'm on the board of Charge Across Town, and the organization works with various organizations that are trying to spur EV adoption. One such program is in the Central Valley here, which is the worst air quality in the nation. And there's a program for low-income individuals to turn in an old clunker car, crush it, and get a new EV. And there are so many people on the wait list for used, a new or used EV. The incentives are available for those. So there's a super long wait list for people to get into cars. It's like over 1,000 people right now that are looking for a used car to get into, just because they're great vehicles. Down the line, you may need to replace the battery, but aside from that, there's no oil changes. There's very little maintenance. Change the windshield wiper fluid, rotate the tires, and you're on your way. So, secondhand market is going to be big.
And there's some technology out there too to make sure you're investing right. So you can check the battery health before you buy a car, which is actually a lot better than the mystery of buying a car with 60 to 100,000 miles on it. You really don't know how well that car's been maintained or if it's been abused. But with the batteries, you plug into it and you can check their life and the life that's left in them and what their charging capabilities are. So I actually think that space is going to be really fun to play in the future.
One more note. Many of the early EVs were leased. So a lot of those EVs are coming off lease now. So there's going to be some supply. And again, I just think a used EV is nearly as good as a new one.
Yes,
all right, we've got some battery / sustainability question coming here. So Mariano is asking what happens to the battery packs upon replacement. And then Lisa is asking, sustainability as a driver for EV, of course. Has it been proven that the increase in manufacturing of batteries is more sustainable than carbon fuels?
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
jump. I'll say there's several studies that prove that cradle to grave EVs are more sustainable than internal combustion cars. Happy to dig some studies up and share those. But obviously there needs to be more done in battery recycling. I think that that's a fact across the board. But when you remove a battery from a car, it's not going to be when that battery is completely dead, right? Like you're going to pull it out when it's, I don't know what the right benchmark is, but say 60% of the life. Well, you still have 60% of that battery. It can be used for creative applications such as stationary storage, home storage, building storage, etc. So there is a growing market for sort of a second life of vehicle batteries.
Exactly. And you can replace the cells within the batteries as well. So you don't have to replace the entire pack. For example, you can open it up and replace portions of it as well. So there's a big future for the batteries that do get pulled from cars.
Thank you. All right, last question, promise. Larry is asking, are we concerned about where the raw materials needed for EVs are from countries that aren't necessarily our friends?
I totally agree. So from Volvo's standpoint, we're very concerned about this. We've always been concerned about safety. And I think everyone would know that Volvo is a safety company, whether it's the occupants inside the car, the occupants outside of the car, the four-legged animals that get in front of the car. We're trying to protect everyone's life. So we've gone as far as using blockchain technology to understand exactly where every raw material is mined from, and then it's logged, and it has to meet a certain level of standard that we've set for human rights for everyone that is mining those materials. So it's part of our commitment, and we understand that that is a big risk, and we're ready to go for it.
Thank you. Mark Snethkamp wants to know how Volvo dealers figure into the equation. So Aleck, I'm just going to connect you and Mark offline if you're okay with that. Mark, I believe is a dealer himself, so I'll connect you.
I recognize the name, and
Okay.
we've been very clear with our retailers that we are moving forward with them. No matter what you read in the news, the U.S. dealers are always part of our footprint for the future.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. This was an amazing chat today with both of you. Thank you for taking the time out to prepare for this. Both of you, Aleck and Dedrick, prepare for this and share your knowledge with us today. Thank you to all of our friends and alumni online who joined us today. Again, we'll be sending this out to you so you can review and watch the recording and share with others that you might think might be interested. So watch your email inbox for our webinar, which we'll be offering in June, and watch your social media channels for our next topic. And again, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for organizing.